Well, in the east of the country, hundreds of miles from here, rescue efforts are taking place to try to find survivors after a theatre was bombed in the besieged city of Mariupol. President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of deliberately dropping a bomb on the theatre. That's where hundreds of people were thought to be sheltering below in the basement. It's understood to have withstood the blast. For its part, Russia has denied carrying out the attack. Our first report in today's programme is from our Kiev correspondent, James Waterhouse.
This has been an attack on the whole of Ukraine and its very future. The way it's resisted Russian forces is the main reason why, still, only one major city has fallen. But the cost of that is growing, and nowhere has paid a bigger price than Mariupol. The southeastern port city is the only location separating advancing Russian troops from the south and east. So for the last fortnight, they've surrounded it and bombarded it. People have been forced underground, where supplies have been extremely limited. Here, around 1,200 people were sheltering in this theatre. Children had even been written in Russian outside to warn attackers from above. But they either didn't care, didn't believe, or didn't see. An image to make everyone fear the worst. Then word that the basement they were in withstood the bomb blast. Casualties appear to be low.
The basement wasn't destroyed, and people, more than 1,000 people who were there, it's mostly women with children, they started to went out, and looks like nobody died.
Moscow's denied the strike, instead blaming so-called Ukrainian nationalists without offering any evidence. Russia's also been accused of continually shelling or attacking routes where temporary ceasefires have been agreed. Humanitarian aid hasn't been able to get in, and people haven't been able to escape.
They are destroying everything, round the clock, and they don't let any humanitarian cargo into our blocked city. For 5 days, Russian troops have not stopped the shelling to prevent the rescue of our people.
In the last few days, though, some grains of hope. 30,000 have made it out, say authorities, but more than 400,000 are still trapped. This is the one Russian advance which hasn't stalled, according to Western officials. Mariupol's resistance is thought to be softening too. The rest of Ukraine will be watching and wondering what it means for them if this city falls. James Waterhouse, BBC News in Kiev.
Well, let's speak now to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucet, who is in Kiev. Lise, here in Lviv, away from the front lines, people can go for a walk, they can buy coffee, they can even sit down outside and try to forget about the conflict. What can people do where you are in Kiev?
Well, James, I'm going to look down in the streets. There's no curfew right now, but if I was to walk just over there where before this invasion there were lots of bustling restaurants, cafes, fashion designers, coffee kiosks, they're all shut except for maybe one or two brave kiosks of selling coffees. Every once in a while on the empty streets we'll spot a coffee shop that's still open, and it's usually full with people trying to recreate what they knew before. This is a city where not only is there a nightly curfew, but the air raid sirens sound almost constantly through the day. And everyone here knows that on the edges of this city, particularly the northwest and the northeast, are Russian forces trying to advance, but they're being pushed back or kept back by the Ukrainian defenses on the ground and the air defense systems. And of course, there is the constant artillery barrages as well, and occasionally they land in the city centre, so there's always that risk too.
When I speak to people here in Lviv, many of them have escaped where you are, Kiev. They said it was just too unsafe for them. They're staying here as a way station on their way to Poland or Hungary or Romania. What, Lise, keeps people in Kiev?
Yes, we heard more than a week ago from the mayor of this city, Vitaly Klitschko, who said that nearly 2 million people have left. That means that there's roughly around 1 million left, although who can be certain with these statistics. What we do know is that the bomb shelters in the underground, in the metro stations, which were absolutely packed, turning people away when the invasion started. Now there's much fewer, in the dozens rather than in the hundreds. The railway platforms, which used to be packed with people heading west, they're quieter too. More and more people do trickle out, but those who are left are either too old or too ill to leave. And there are the young people we meet in a city which, it has to be said, if you drive around the streets, you see most of the people are out who are elderly, perhaps going down to the local shops while it still seems safe. But the young people we meet are here because they've decided to stay and fight, or they're here because they want to stay. They want to be here in their city, in their home, because they say it is their home, and why should they leave?
In times of peace, we often say in conversation, don't we, well, a city is its people. I wonder what Kiev is without its people. What is the city?
Well, even the people who left still have the spirit of Kiev with them, and I'm sure they will want to come back. Their identity is here, their memories are here, their sense of self is here, their life was here. It's absolutely heartbreaking. There's been some stories being told about, there's one in particular which sticks in my mind, a young woman who said, I used to live in a very hip neighborhood of Kiev. I had a very good job. I was a social media manager. And now she says, I'm a refugee. No one is going to want to remain a refugee, to remain outside their country. If they believe they can come back to this city, they're hoping against hope that this city, there won't be an attempt to flatten this city, to besiege it, to bombard it in the way that's happening in Mariupol. But it's 4 weeks into this war, James. That's a long time, but it's also a short time in this kind of a war.